Okay, so we will be dissecting the cow heart. So where is the front that we're supposed to be looking at? So we know that it's the front because our apex is going towards the left. And we know that it's the front because we see this over here. And we also see these two at the front over here. Because if we look at the back, there's none of that over there. So now that we know this is the front, it's also the front because we can see the coronary artery. So now that we have it on the front, let's analyze the parts of the chambers. We have 4 chambers of the heart. This is your right atrium, your right ventricle, your left atrium, and your left ventricle. We always said this is the coronary artery. This over here, if we put our fingers in there, we can know that this over here is a pulmonary artery. Why? Because if we place our fingers in over here, it's a thicker muscle down over here, back of here, than it is when we put our fingers in the pulmonary artery. Because the right is supposed to be thinner than the left. So this is the pulmonary artery. These that are coming out from here, this is the atrium. This is the aorta. My bad. This is the aorta. And then from back here, if we put our fingers in there, we can feel that thick muscle. So from the back, we know that this is the pulmonary veins. And from the back as well, if we place our fingers in here, over here, we could feel that thin muscular wall. So this has to be our inferior vena cava. So now we have labeled all the parts. Now we need to dissect the heart. So we go from our right atrium, and we go towards our right ventricle. So let's start cutting. We can start cutting from probably over here. We could see all those deposits of fat on top there. Let's make slow. So we don't want to cut so deep. Because this is the thinner side, not the thicker side. So we need to make sure that we are not cutting the parts that we should not cut. Okay, I see blood clot. Okay, then we cut more top here. Cut more. Okay, so we have big. Let's move the pieces of blood clot just so we can see what's happening inside this heart. So we have opened it up. We have one flap over here, this huge flap. We have flap over here, behind that flap. So this flap over here, it's very hard to come out. Let me just do this. We have this flap as well over here. And those flaps, we should have a third flap. The third flap is over here. So we have 1 flap, 2 flap, and 3 flap. And those 3 flaps that we find over there, those separate the right atrium and the right ventricle. And that is a tricuspid valve. And these, when the blood comes from your inferior and superior vena cava over here, they enter these flaps. They enter these flaps. They enter the atrium. They go through the tricuspid valve, these flaps. They enter into the right ventricle, and then they come out through the pulmonary arteries, and from the pulmonary arteries they go to the lungs, because your right chamber is supposed to input deoxygenated blood. Oh, I'm not showing. Deoxygenated blood. So they go into here. After they pass the right ventricle, they go into here. They go out of our pulmonary artery, so it can go to the lungs to get for the blood to get reoxygenated. So if we cut more over here towards the pulmonary artery, because this is our pulmonary artery, cutting towards, this is the pulmonary artery right here. We see these flaps. 1 flap, 2 flap, and 3 flap. They look like cups. And these flaps are the pulmonary valves. And these valves don't allow for backflow of blood, because we don't want backflow of blood. We would just want one pathway of blood. So those stops the blood from going back into the heart, because they're supposed to be going out of the heart. So now we have labeled all the parts of our right chamber. Now for our left chamber. This is we already labeled our pulmonary artery. We have here our aorta. This is our left chamber. So we cut from our left chamber. Let me find this cut. Okay, so let's cut from our pulmonary veins. This is our pulmonary veins. And these side, let's cut more. Cut a little bit more. Oh, we're cutting towards our apex. So let's cut it. As you can see, it's a lot thicker muscle than in the right chamber. So we're cutting and we feel like we still don't get there yet. Not like it was happening in the right chamber. Okay, now we see an opening. Okay. Ooh, we can see the valves. Okay. So we have cut. Here. You can open it now a little bit. Remove blood clots so you can see better. It's this thick piece of ice. Alright. So what happens here now? We have opened it. We have opened our left chamber. So we can see from here, this is our pulmonary veins. So we have our pulmonary veins over here. Let me cut it a little bit more so you can see better. So we have cut our pulmonary veins. So we have here our left atrium. Then we go into these flaps. Look at these flaps. There's one flap over here, and on the other side there's another flap. This is the bicuspid. The bicuspid. So as you can see here, this is the left atrium. The oxygen comes through into our pulmonary veins. These are oxygenated blood. It goes through our pulmonary veins into our left, we're dealing with the left chamber. Left atrium, pass through these bicuspid valves, these flaps, into our left ventricle over here, and then goes up into over here to go into our aorta. Look at where my finger is coming out of. Over here. My fingers are coming out of this aorta. So again, our pulmonary veins pass through our bicuspid valves, these these flaps into our left ventricle, and then they go through over here into our aorta. So now let's cut a little bit more. Let's cut into our atrium a little bit here so we can reach to our aorta. And let's see what's happening in our aorta. Aha, this is exactly what we wanted to find. Let's cut a little bit more there. So once we have exited, oh, can the camera see that? Once we have exited the left ventricle, we go into over here. This is our aorta. And then in our aorta, we have these flaps. Look, these 3 flaps. 1, 2, 3. And these flaps, just like from the other side where we saw the flaps, these flaps prevent the backflow of blood, because the blood is supposed to go through our aorta to go to the rest of the body, because the rest of the body needs oxygenated blood. And what these flaps do, these aortic valves, is that they prevent the backflow of blood back into the heart. So these beautiful 3 flaps over there. 1, 2, and 3. Oh, one part as well. This is our septum. It separates the left and the right chambers. So we have the septum over here and the septum from this side as well. We can't see because of this piece of ice, right? This chunk of ice they have there. But the septum that separates the both of the chambers. And that's the dissection of our heart and the labels of what our heart, the portions of our heart.